And now we have to go to Maimonides, what purpose he himself used the Aleppo Codex.
Yeah.
He wanted in his halachic treatise, Mishneh Torah, he wrote about Hilchot Sefer Torah, how to write a Torah scroll. And he said that you have to follow the spaces of parashiyot, ptuchot ustumot, open and closed sections, according to the tradition, according to the tradition of writing. And that you have to put every space in his, not to omit any space and not to change its form from stuma to ptucha or vice versa. So Maimonides says there is some problem about that, because the Torah scroll in his generations differ from each other according to about the spaces of the parashiot. So Maimonides say that he wanted to solve this problem, and he wanted to follow one tradition, which is very, very important, which is so he relied on the Aleppo Codex. He made a list of all spaces, all parashiot of the Aleppo Codex in the part of the Torah, in the Pentateuch, and he wrote it in his halachic book Mishneh Torah.
So what we're talking about here is when you get to the end of a thought in the Torah, there is a space, and there's two types of spaces, open and closed ones. And what Maimonides was saying is these have to be reproduced perfectly in a Torah scroll, or the Torah scroll isn't valid for reading in the synagogue, and everyone's doing it wrong, so he relied on the Aleppo Codex.
And it's not so simple, because there were many traditions all over the Jewish world, and there were many disputes in his time. We also, when we look at the ancient manuscripts like the Aleppo Codex and Leningrad Codex, the spaces are not identical. We can find different sorts of parashiot in these two, comparing these two manuscripts. Or if you go on and compare other manuscripts, you find out many, many differences. So the Maimonides not only decided that the Aleppo Codex is a good tradition that should be followed, he had to convince all the Jews all over the world to leave their local traditions and take the tradition of the Aleppo Codex and prefer it, and then write new Torah scrolls according to the Aleppo Codex. It's not so simple, because you cannot imagine that in 1 week they will decide, okay, Maimonides is right, let's take all our Torah scrolls and put them into the Gnizah, and so we have to read the Torah in the next Shabbat. What will we do? But it cannot be done in 1 week or in 1 year. But during some generations, many communities who wanted to write new Torah scrolls follow the list of parashiot in Mishneh Torah. So they followed the Aleppo Codex, because this list was relied upon the Aleppo Codex. And then they began to write more and more Sifrei Torah according to this tradition of parashiot. And in some generations, they looked at their old Torah scrolls and they say, oh, there is some scrolls that do not fit the halacha of Maimonides, so they put them in the Gnizah, or maybe they even corrected them and tried to adjust them according to the traditions, the list of Maimonides.
So it's interesting. So when they looked at one of these old Torah scrolls, they probably thought, oh, this is a mistake. But at the time it was written, it might not have been a mistake. It just wasn't. It was following a different tradition.
Yeah. So as I said, it took some generations, and the main fact is that new Torah scrolls were written according to this list of Maimonides, which was very, very stable. That I'll speak later about that. How did Maimonides succeed to create a list that would not be another case of version, we did not have disputes in copying it, and it will remain stable as it went out of his hands. But he succeeded. He did that with some sophisticated manners. So during the generations, most of the new Torah scrolls were written according to this well-known list of Maimonides. And then, if you skip some generation forward, people, the old Torah scrolls, maybe they didn't use it because the Torah scroll after some centuries became it became pasul again because the ink goes down and the
ink fades and it becomes invalid for use.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe that it became such procedures that in some synagogues all the Torah scrolls were new scrolls that were written according to the Maimonides, and that's how this tradition overcame. But maybe in other places, most of the Torah scrolls were according to Maimonides, but they found one or two Torah scrolls that were written according to another tradition and were old or were copied from old other codices. And that was the question, what to do them, to take them out of use, to say that these are Sifrei Torah Psulim, or to try to correct them. But what we know, the end of the story was that all communities of the Jews in Yemen, in Sephardic and Ashkenazic, they got this tradition. So all the Torah scrolls today over the Jewish world are all written according to the Aleppo Codex, because as copied by the list of Maimonides.
And there's a certain irony here because part of the Aleppo Codex is missing.
Yes.
And specifically, most of the Torah is missing. And so all we really have is the list of Maimonides to know where the open and closed sections are.
We have another evidence, and there is one or two or three cases which have to be checked, because the evidence we have about the Aleppo Codex is not exactly what the Maimonides writes. So I'm not going now into details, but in one case, there is a dispute between the communities, between the Yemenite Torah scrolls and the Sephardic and Ashkenazic in Leviticus chapter 7, where to put a parasha. And in that case, maybe that Maimonides failed in copying, in arranging his list, and skipped one parasha. And so maybe that there is one place that our tradition is not exactly that of the origin of the Aleppo Codex, but we cannot be sure that, as you said, these pages, this list of the Aleppo Codex are not exist today.